to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to see if anybody has any sort of committee reports or any comments.
I'd like to start out tonight, Christine, if I can.
Sure.
And give a big shout out to the Players Club and to Mr. Mesmer for an amazing experience this past weekend. I was fortunate enough to attend Guys and Dolls on Sunday with my wife and some of my kids. And I can tell you, just like every year past, the performance was absolutely stellar. I see some of the folks in the back that worked on the production. Thank you for everything that you guys do. The investment that's made into the music program, as you sit there and look at it, it is something that should make this community very, very proud. From the lights to the costumes, special shout out to Mrs. Batts. For those of you that didn't know, actually stayed home and made 22 orange fans on her own. She's the costume manager because they were too expensive to source. She actually made a joke on Sunday that her dog was orange for a while because he got into the feathers. But in all seriousness, to the seniors and to everyone that participated, it is Broadway quality, and it is something that really should make this community proud. So, round of applause for the Players Club.
Thank you very much, Matt. So tonight, the Board of Education is very excited to hear from our administrators about the proposed schedule change at the secondary level. We understand that any schedule change can have an impact on students, families, and staff. Our goal is to ensure a smooth transition while we address various challenges. We expect the community will have questions, but because this is a work session, questions and comments are reserved only for the Board of Education. However, there will be an upcoming community forum that will allow parents to meet with the administrators and ask their questions. And we'll update the community once we have that date. The proposed schedule change is not by any means a rushed and uninformed decision by Dr. Valenti and this Board of Education. We began exploring the schedule change as far back as 2021. In 2023, we brought in tri-state consultants to analyze and review our high school. Last year, we discussed changing the schedule at several Board of Education meetings. However, we decided to wait until we had Mr. Welsh's input. Mr. Welsh and his committee were tasked with evaluating the current schedule and have been working diligently all year. At the February meeting, Mr. Welsh did discuss a phased-in approach. However, after further discussion with the high school committee, Dr. Meyer, and Robert Jacoby, it was determined that a new schedule could be accomplished sooner. This proposed schedule does not take any opportunities away from our students. Rather, it is created to enhance the student's school experience. For instance, class periods will be extended to allow for deeper learning. A new schedule will better support students' well-being. Students will be afforded flexibility in their schedule for electives and will have more accessibility to guidance. Additionally, students will be able to participate in both after-school clubs as well as school sports. This high school schedule has been in place for close to 25 years and is not meeting the current needs of the students to allow for their full potential. High school is just 4 years. We cannot afford to wait another year. It is time for this district to meet the students' needs as 21st century learners. We wish to thank Mr. Welsh, Mrs. LeBeau, Dr. Myers, Mr. Jacoby, and the high school scheduling committee for your tireless efforts at working to improve the students' high school experience. And with that, Dr. Valenti, you are up.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam President, for that introduction. It sets the table for what we're here to do tonight. We have our team, as you mentioned. We'll be introducing Chris Welch to talk specifically to the schedule in a few minutes. Then we'll ask Dr. Meyer, Bill Meyer, to say a few words about the advisory period, office hours, and student help about the schedule. And then Madeline LeBleu will make a presentation on what the middle school schedule will look like for next year. And then I will conduct a question and answer period with the board as needed. So let's get right to it. Let me address some of the challenges that we met and how we're addressing them, because there has been a good deal of honest concern about shifting to a new schedule when you know that you're sharing teachers between the middle school and the high school. I've had several meetings with both Chris and Madeline. We have 5 shared teachers as of today. 3 of those 5 shared teachers will be assigned either full-time to the high school or to the middle school. Of the remaining 2, our thinking is that with orchestra, we would like to keep a full-time orchestra position at the middle school. Right now it is 0.8, and 0.2 moves to the high school. But in doing this investigation, we learned that the high school orchestra does not have lessons. Obvious question, why? A response, well, we never did. So we've just had 0.2 of the orchestra teacher. In talking to Chris, we think that maybe an additional 0.4 or 0.6 could be assigned to the high school solely for lessons and maintaining a full-time teacher at the middle school. And we're able to do this within the current budget. The other position is film studies, and we need to look at that. I'm staying away from names. I stay solely with positions. And with respect to film studies, right now, about 0.6 to 0.8 of that is at the high school. 0.2 to 0.6 or more is at the middle school. 0.4 approximately is at the high school. We think through the 6-period assignment, as well as with the benefit of a scheduling consultant, we could address that. So the first challenge, we think, is addressed. A more challenging question has been raised by the music faculty with respect to adequate space. Well, let me state for the record, if we did nothing to the schedule next year, we still would have inadequate space for music. I'm going to say that again. If we stayed with the current schedule for next year, we still would have inadequate space for music. What we currently are doing is less than the best. So, what do you do to not only accommodate a new schedule, but to correct what is an identifiable problem that may have existed for all of the 25 years that the president alluded to with the schedule? Today, a team, our board member, Chrissy Geegan, Christine Lombardi is the president, joined high school principal Chris, Madeline, Bill, Robert, Mark Dodge, chair of the music department, Elliot Sheldon, our director of facilities, Jeff from the music department joined in, and we had our engineers. Quite a large group, walking throughout the entire building, examining every available space within and outside the building that could be converted in some way to resolve the current inadequacy and what would be a compounded inadequacy going forward with the new schedule. We believe we found a solution internally within the current footprint. I'm not going to go into detail tonight, but we visited a couple of rooms where we think we will find solutions that will be available come September. A little bit later in this semester, I'll be able to say more about that. But in fairness to our engineers, they only met with us today. I did ask them for a proposal, so let's give them reasonable time. But I can safely recommend that we'll address the music space problem this semester and be ready for September 1st for a new schedule. The third issue has nothing to do with the middle and the high school from one point of view. It is a district-wide issue, and it's busing. So as the superintendent and the board, we need to look at that from our perspective. When Chris and Madeline talk about the schedule, they'll give reasons for starting at 7:30 in the morning because our buses are now arriving 7:15 or 7:20. However, you're going to see the end of the high school that day ends at 2:26. So the question is, if you have a later end of the secondary day, what impact does that have on the buses? As you can see, at the high school, approximately 10 minutes would be the impact of the ending of school, 14 minutes to be precise. And so we're estimating 14 minutes later with the bus. Transportation thinks they may be able to shave that down by about 5 minutes. But right now, I want to be more realistic. We do give students 10 minutes to get to the buses. So right now, we're keeping those 10 minutes. The impact will be only at Ann Hutch and Greenvale. There is no change at Waverly. Waverly will continue to end school at 3:05, and the buses will leave at 3:15. At both Ann Hutch and Greenvale, we're looking at some schedules that may implicate a 10-minute later ending of the school day, and therefore buses leaving. So I want to put that on the table. We plan to maintain two-tier busing. That means we're keeping all 19 buses. So in effect, within the constraints of the schedule, et cetera, that problem would be worked out between Ann Hutch and Greenvale. So at this point, let's call Chris up and start discussion about the actual budget. Chris?
Thank you, Dr. Valenti, and thank you, trustees, for giving me the opportunity to discuss the proposed schedule. Obviously, there's been quite a bit of buzz about the schedule in the community, so I'm excited to be able to not only clarify some of the mechanics of the schedule, but to really talk about why this is good for kids. So, strong organizations always start with why. And, I know I talked a little bit about this last time when I was up here in December, but I think it's worth repeating. This is Simon Sinek's Start with Why, the golden circle of why. So when we start with why we're looking to change or to implement something new, it keeps us focused on positive outcomes for students. So we must ask ourselves, what are our goals, what motivates us, and why are we doing this? So here are 5 broad areas that make up our why. It's important here to emphasize that so much of these areas is rooted in feedback that we have received from students, from parents, from families, and from teachers. So the first one is deeper learning, and as a faculty at the high school, we've really been emphasizing the LATIC model, which stands for Learner Active Technology Infused Classrooms. Many of our faculty discussions have included instructional strategies that provide students with opportunities to collaborate, discuss, debate, and think critically. I see much of this happening in our classrooms already, but most times I walk away from an observation saying a teacher could have used 10 minutes more. Sure, look, if we were going to implement lecture-based instruction for the entire period, more time wouldn't be beneficial. But in terms of deeper learning, I think a little bit more time is certainly going to benefit. So you'll see when I get into the nuts and bolts of the presentation that periods are 49 minutes long. Again, there was strong feedback across stakeholders that an 80-minute block would be a little challenging for students. So we heard that feedback. We've incorporated it while also providing the time we need to engage in 21st century learning. We'll also continue to focus school-wide professional development around creating dynamic learning environments for students. So the second piece here, we strongly considered research on circadian rhythm of adolescents who clearly have different experiences based upon the time of the day. So we have about 5 times more latenesses first period than we do any other period of the day. So if a student has the same class first period every day, many of those students who struggle to wake up in the morning, they're behind the 8 ball in that class because it's every day, first period, the same class. Similarly, students experience what I like to call the post-lunch slump. They might come back to class after lunch feeling a little bit lethargic, or if they left campus, it takes a little bit of time to reacclimate to the school environment. So the next piece on prioritizing SEL work. Research on adolescent mental health is well documented, and as a district, we've committed to embedding social and emotional learning as part of our curriculum. But no matter how many assemblies we host, breakouts we schedule, the work cannot fully be realized unless we carve out dedicated time for students to engage in the areas of SEL. The work is legitimized by creating scheduled time for advisory. In terms of student wellness, we take it very seriously, and we know that sometimes high school can be overwhelming. Having classes meet 4 instead of 5 days per week should create a more balanced workload for students. Similarly, having 7 class meetings per day means having 1 or 2 less classes to get through in a day. We also believe that having the schedule anchored to days of the week instead of some arbitrary number or letter, Mondays will be Mondays, Tuesdays will be Tuesdays, should provide a level of consistency for students. And finally, while we are not solely a college prep institution, we are committed to setting students up for success beyond the walls of Eastchester High School. As we know, the very large majority of colleges follow non-daily schedules with classes ranging from 50 to 75 minutes. We believe this schedule provides a developmentally appropriate approach that allows students to dip their toes in the shallow end and get a taste of the longer periods they'll experience in college. So here's what the schedule looks like. And while it certainly looks a little bit like a paint by number, there's a lot of planning that's gone into this schedule. So a lot of what I'll be presenting in the coming slides is detailed because it's important that everyone sees that from a mechanics standpoint, it all works. It's kind of like you hire an architect to build a house, right? The architect knows the code, draws up the plans, and the homeowner's concerns are really about, is the house safe? Is it comfortable? Does it meet our family's needs? I ask that you look at us, the administration here, as the architects of this schedule and not worry too much about the specifics of how the schedule works. We'll be providing students and families in the fall with schedule grids that will make it easy for them to follow their daily schedules. So here is really the meat and potatoes of the schedule, what it all boils down to. So the schedule consists of a 7-period day with classes of 49 minutes in length. Each class will meet 4 times per week, and science classes will meet 6 periods per week, including 2 double block periods. Phys Ed will meet 2 times per week, and we are excited about moving some of our electives to meet full year 2 times per week for half a credit. Currently, our half credit courses meet every day for half of the year, and this shift will allow students to take an additional elective if they choose to. You'll also note there's 4 minutes of passing time, which gives students an extra minute between classes to take an extra breath, use the bathroom, or have enough time to get from one class to the next. The schedule is arranged in morning and afternoon rotations, which means the 5 morning rotations meet in periods 1 to 4, and the 3.5 afternoon rotations meet in periods 5 to 7. This allows us to accommodate our BOCES Occ-Ed students who can take their academic classes, including a resource room if they need it, and leave around 11:30 to get to their programs at BOCES. I'll talk a little bit more about lunch in a later slide, but it will be embedded in 3 lunch waves during period 5. Instead of having a set lunch period in their schedule, lunch will be attached daily to their period 5 class. And while it's a 10-day cycle, that's really to accommodate advisory on Wednesday in week 1 and office hours in week 2. The schedule will follow the days of the week. So again, Mondays are Mondays, Tuesdays are Tuesdays. It's not an A day, a B day, a 1 day, a 2 day. The schedule, we believe this consistency will be positive for students in terms of their overall experience. The last 2 bullets there go together. The schedule provides for optional AM extra help from 7:30 to 7:50 in the morning. Now, I recognize that some might balk at the idea of moving extra help to the morning, but there are a few reasons why we positioned it there. First, we have about 250 to 300 students that currently ride the bus that arrive here by 7:20, 7:25 in the morning. Those 250 students are in the cafeteria, congregating, not doing anything productive for the most part. So we view this as a really valuable shift to provide almost a third of our students who are already here with the opportunity to meet with teachers. Second, from an academic perspective, having the option to get last-minute help in the morning before a test or to get feedback on homework prior to a class meeting makes a lot of sense to us. And lastly, this is reflective of parent and student feedback. Having the extra help in the morning allows for clubs to take place prior to the start of athletics. Club meetings will begin immediately after the end of 7th period at 2:40 and furthers our goal of developing well-rounded students by allowing athletes to participate in clubs in a way that they currently have been unable to do. So here's the bell schedule. I'm going to take a quick sip of water. And this is what the schedule would look like, and it reflects everything that was covered in the previous slide. So while I allow everybody to take a moment to look at the bell schedule, I'll just say that in our committee work, we examined non-traditional bell schedules from Horace Greeley High School, Bronxville, Byram Hills, Blindbrook, Croton Harmon, and North Salem. There are many other schools in Westchester that have moved away from the 9-period day, I would say more than half. And our goal was not to look at these schedules and say, we want Bronxville schedule, we want Byram Hill schedule, but it was to look at them holistically and say which aspects of those schedules work best for our unique community. So I have experience with the similar schedule in Scarsdale, and Bill Meyer, who will present shortly, has experience with non-traditional schedules in Rye and Bronxville. So to focus in a little more on lunch, all students will have lunch attached to their period 5 class. So period 5 will consist of 35 minutes of lunch and 48 minutes of class. So in reality, lunch you'll see is a little less than an hour and a half long. So some students will be part of what we'll call early lunch, others will have late lunch, some will have a middle lunch. So the first group, they go to lunch, they have class after. The middle group has a little bit of class, takes a break for lunch, comes back to class. And then the third wave has class first and then lunch. You'll notice in that middle wave that it includes 2 extra minutes of instruction to account for the additional transition time of going to lunch and then coming back to class. So a thing to note, because again, 35 minutes is shorter than the current 40-minute lunch, but if you take the 35 minutes of lunch and you consider the additional passing time, students actually have more unscheduled time outside of the classroom in the new proposed schedule. So in terms of lunch, we'll hand schedule lunch taking into account the different types of classes. For instance, all PE classes will have late lunch because we don't want students eating and then having to go run a lap or participate in a workout. With middle lunch, we'll be strategic about which classes can accommodate a split instruction model, but we're confident there are enough classes that would be able to make it work. that was kind of a lot of information. Do you want to pause for a minute for any points of clarification before I move
We're
on?
going to wait till the end of the
You're gonna wait till the end.
presentation
Okay,
before
great.
questions.
So again, here's the schedule in its full form. The rotations here are color-coded with the 5 rotations in the morning and 3.5 rotations in the afternoon. This schedule accommodates students taking up to 8.5 classes plus lunch, as where our current model offers students 8 periods plus lunch. So in addition to allowing for the expansion of elective programs and our MTSS model, that extra half rotation positions us to be ready to implement a required financial literacy course, which the state is considering for the 26-27 school year. Advisory takes place Wednesday 6th period during week 1, and office hours will take place on Wednesday 7th period during week 2. So the next few slides show how the rotations work, because when you look at that big colorful schedule, to the naked eye, it feels like, is this random? Like, did they just decide this class is going to meet here and there? And actually, it's very strategic in how the classes meet rotationally. So again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds and go through all of the rotations, so I'm going to go through 2 of them, show you how they work together, and then we can move on. So Class A here is scheduled in what I call the 1-2-3-X2 rotation, meaning it meets Monday 1st period, Tuesday 2nd period, Wednesday 3rd period, doesn't meet on Thursday, and then comes back again to meet 2nd period on Friday. So the next one is the 2-1-4-4-X rotation, and that meets on Monday 2nd period, Tuesday 1st period, Wednesday and Thursday 4th period, does not meet on Friday. Now, what's important is to see how these 2 rotations work in synergy, because if you take Class A, it naturally links up with Class B, which allows for the double blocks. So for instance, if Class A were your biology class, and on biology you had class Monday 1st, Tuesday 2nd, Wednesday 3rd, and then again Friday 2nd, you would have your lab periods double blocked as half of that B rotation. So on Mondays, there would be a double lab periods 1 and 2, and again on Wednesdays, a double lab periods 3 and 4. The other half of that B rotation could be for PE or for a half credit elective. So now let's take a look at some student schedules. So in each of the next 4 slides, I've provided side by side what a current schedule would look like if it were translated into next year's schedule. I'll walk through each of these 4 unique student profiles. So the first one here is for a 12th grade student with mostly AP classes and an elective. This student is fully scheduled with 8 classes and lunch. On the right, you see how the student's program would look next year. You'll notice everything fits nicely. Advisory is scheduled for Wednesday period 5, and this student, if they wanted to, could add a half-year elective, a half-credit elective. Just to go back to the science piece again, you see that AP Biology, which is that light purple block, meets Monday 4th, Tuesday 3rd, does not meet on Wednesday, Thursday 2nd, and Friday 1st. That allows for the double lab block to come from that orange rotation, which is the X4-2-1-3 rotation, where the student has lab on Tuesday 4th period, phys ed Wednesday 2nd, lab again Thursday 1st, and phys ed on Friday 3rd period. So next we have a 10th grade student here with health and study hall, a little more give in the schedule. Here you'll notice by shifting the health class to a full year, 2 times a week class, instead of every day for half the year, that yellow rotation there in the 3x134 becomes available if that student would like to add an additional full year course or a half year elective, a half credit elective. So this slide here illustrates how the schedule works for our BOCES OCAD students. You see all of their classes, including for this student's a learning workshop and a choir elective, fit in the morning. We'll be making a shift to PM-only BOCES model instead of offering students the option to participate at BOCES in either the morning or afternoon. So we have approximately 25 juniors who are in BOCES this year, who will be continuing in their second year at BOCES next year, with about half of them currently participating in a morning BOCES program. For every one of those students, their program is also offered in the afternoon. So there's no discontinuity in the program for our returning BOCES students. And then of the 25 or so current 10th graders who are interested in starting a BOCES program next year, only one of those 25 students is requesting a program that is only offered in the morning. That's the nurse's assistant program, and we're working individually with that student to kind of weigh what options are available based on, you know, their transcript, what courses they're requiring moving forward. So lastly here, we have a student schedule that includes resource room and reading support. Again, you can see everything fits nicely, and with the additional half-credit class available in the bottom corner there on 7th period Tuesdays and Fridays. This student could get additional support through our MTSS model if they needed it in a way that right now they can't. So I think that's an added benefit there. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk a little bit about advisory.
So the first thing I'll say, and he won't say this himself, but Chris Walsh is literally the schedule guru. I don't know if you heard him dropping those numbers, but I have seen this guy writing schedules on napkins, and I'm not making that up. I mean, he takes this so seriously. We are so fortunate to have his expertise because this is not an easy task. The second thing I'll say, which should be noted, and he referenced this is taking the best elements from the best schedules in this region. And that is what he has constructed, and we've collectively supported him in that work, which is pretty remarkable. I mean, you see what's available. It's not narrowing possibilities, but really expanding those possibilities. And the third piece, which personally I find so exciting, is the way that this affords and embeds the SEL work that we've been doing and building on over the last 18 months here within the schedule. And this is where we have the opportunity to have an advisory program, to have a curriculum built around this notion that will build out in partnership with Ruler. We have 18 advisories over the course of the entire year. You would have fewer advisories if you were a senior, but this will allow us to explore more deeply things, for example, in the ninth grade transition process. In 10th grade, we build in a whole set of modalities around career exploration. In 11th grade, college prep. And in senior year, obviously applying to college, and then the whole process of transitioning to college and beyond in the post-secondary opportunities. So there's so many different opportunities that we can explore and build out through this advisory period, including embedding the incredible speakers that we bring to the school, the opportunity for student speaker series, assemblies that often stood alone. Now we can use advisory as a place and a space to integrate that information. And of course, we're going to support our teachers every step of the way in leading and taking a leading role in this advisory through a curriculum, through professional development over the summer, at the beginning of the school year, throughout the school year, so that we can deliver really the quality of connection that we so desire within our students' experience. One other thing that I'll note, or a couple other things in the advisory benefits that I referenced, is really what we're trying to build is communities within the community. And we know this is so important, to have a trusted adult and to have strong relationships with your peers are some of the leading indicators of success for a student both in high school and beyond. And to embed this, as I said, within the schedule is nothing short of phenomenal and really speaks to the priority that this faces and we place within this work. The other piece I'll note, and this is a little bit of a historic element, but I do think it's worth noting as a historian myself and looking at this, the origins of our current Bell schedule date over a century back. I mean, this is really, not that anyone wants to note this, but this comes from what's called the Gary Plan. And in the 1920s, We were talking about the cult of efficiency, and the structure of this current Bell model was basically about efficiency. It wasn't about experience. It definitely wasn't preparing students for the 21st century, and especially wasn't preparing them for the challenges and the needs that they have in this current moment. The other thing you have to think about, and this is what's really wild, yeah, we talk about 21st century skills. We're a quarter of a century into this one. The students that are being born today, congratulations, right, are going to be living into the 22nd century, right? So we have to think beyond the horizon that we used to think about. And I think these ideas of advisory, having a structured office hours, flexibility, a rotating schedule, this is the nonlinear thinking and the patterns of work and life that our students are going to be facing, and supporting them in this transition is integral to their long-term success. So, I mean, I can't say enough about the work that Chris has done, and I think the way in which it honors so many different voices. I know it's not easy, transition never is, but I have to say it's really exciting to be a part of this and to see the possibility. Now I will turn it over to Rob Jacoby, who's going to talk a little bit about the office hours.
All right, good evening. I will echo Bill in praising Chris's work on this. It's, as you can tell from the color by number, is it? It's not an easy task, and he's and also collaborating with the whole team and hearing input from the committee and input from a lot of stakeholders. We've really tried to incorporate a lot of that into this, and I hope tonight provides the clarity in all these slides of what this looks like. And you know, the most eye-opening for me is looking at the slide that shows a current student schedule and then their schedule next year and say, wait, they could take another class? And that is a slide that I hope hits home. So from my end, we really collaborated utilizing our current student information system and making sure that we can provide a visual of the schedule for families and students so that it's not too confusing. I will tell you from experience from somebody that had gone through this schedule as an administrator, his quote was, you know, the kids got it within a couple weeks. You know, oftentimes it was more getting the educators who have done this for many, many years going with it. But the truth is, when you look at your individual schedule, it really makes much more sense than it kind of looks like on a big grid. So we've confirmed that our system can do that. Next year, we're moving to a new student information system that will be live the following school year. So it will only leverage the technology in that even better for students and families. So one of the benefits of office hours, which you see on Wednesday number 2, 7th period, is that it gives students a large block of 49 minutes to get really targeted help from teachers. Right now they get, you know, in the new schedule, they get 20 minutes in the morning, you know, when they need it. And so that might be some quick assignment check-in on a test, I need a little bit of help here. But with the office hours, it not only gives the students the abilities to check with their teachers and schedule time and have it dedicated for them, but it also gives teachers the opportunity to schedule time with students when that teacher knows the student needs something extra. And that would be mandatory time where the teacher can schedule that. And so we've done the research on a platform that'll help us allow that scheduling to take place for teachers and for students. In addition, anybody who's gone to college, teacher posts their office hours. We know about office hours. This whole model starts training for that next level a little bit sooner. So we've got, start with the term office hours, right? It gives you that autonomy in certain areas, but we still have that sort of leverage of teachers having some control over what that time looks like. And so utilizing the technology, the students are going to jump in, the teachers are going to get any training and support they need. This checks so many, all of the boxes that we've gotten input on, and I think we're trying to get here, and it really maximizes what we can do for students. So it's, again, it's really exciting to be a part of. So I think it's Madeline's turn.
Thank you and good evening. So at the middle school, we are able to accommodate our current model, which we think is most appropriate for the middle school developmental age and the brain development of adolescents at the time that they experience middle school. So the change for us will be a little bit of, within their day, the extra help will change to the morning hours. We can accommodate that, and you'll notice that we're able to increase the instructional time per class period by 2 minutes. We also keep our 3-minute transition time with the 4-minute transition time from period 3 to 4, which we found is a pivotal time of the day that accommodates students in our team model structure with executive functioning needs in regards to accessing their lockers. We keep our grade level lunches that we currently have. As I said previously, we maintain our team structure at the middle school, and we designate that time for clubs and activities, and then that is prior to the beginning of modified athletics, so that students are able to experience both clubs, which we are very proud of at the middle school, and access to athletics as well. And we'll be around for questions. My presentation is short this evening, so thank you.
Thanks, Madeline.
Let's give them all a round of applause, please. Super job. Thank you all very much. So this is our opportunity, members of the board, to ask questions or make comments. We can call upon any of our presenters for any of your questions or comments.
Well, first I'd like to say, I mean, amazing job, Chris, Bill, and Robert. I mean, this is a huge breath of fresh air. I mean, this was a long time coming, and you guys just put something that has, I mean, it knocked our socks off in terms of what you're capable of doing, what you've recognized are the problems. And Bill, to your points, I mean, even though we've had the class scheduled for 25 plus years, the fact that it was harkened back to over 50 years is telling to this community that a change is needed. We're not here to produce efficient students, we're here to produce global thinkers. So again, thank you guys. Now, with that, does anybody have any questions? I'll start with Sean and then work around. Sean?
Sure. So I just wanted to, there we go. So I just wanted to direct a question just about lunch and kind of going over that too, because I think what we've seen a lot throughout the community are the conversations around, oh, well, I've seen lunch is only 25 minutes, I've seen lunch is this many minutes, and obviously we can see here that it's more than 25 minutes, but when you're structuring that, how does that work exactly, just to go over that one more time, because I just want to make sure that everybody fully understands how you're going to pick and choose with the slide of the schedule.
Yeah, I think Chris would best handle that. Chris? Yeah.
It might actually help if I go back to the waves here. So you have a fifth period. So in the schedule here, you'll notice that fifth period is longer than the other classes. So fifth period goes from 11:25 till 12:54. So every student in the building during fifth period will have a class and a lunch. They have both of them in fifth period. And to accommodate that, we have 3 waves to do it. So there's the early lunch, right, where they have lunch first. They have their 35 minutes, and then we ring a bell, and they'd go to class. The middle group has a little more time. They have 22 minutes of class. They go get their 35 minutes of lunch. They come back for another 28 minutes, so they have 2 additional minutes of instruction because of the additional transition time. It's the same class, yeah. So that's why I said we have to be strategic in which classes are going to do that. We're not going to put a math class there.
So, yeah, so hypothetically, what's an example of a class that might be? I mean,
Yeah, so maybe an art class, right? Because an art class you could probably pick up at any point where you've left off. You know, we've talked a little bit about maybe a science lab, because with the science labs, there's already built-in break time because it's such an extended period. Maybe that makes sense. Some of our elective classes where, you know, it's not a traditional assessment model, so you're not looking to break up a test or a writing assignment, something of that nature.
Thank you all for that wonderful presentation. As a parent who does not yet have a high schooler, I was a little bit overwhelmed thinking about a change from what I didn't know quite was in place already, but I'm very happy to see that with this change, we are having more time in the schedule without compromising anything. We're not compromising academics, we're not compromising sports, clubs. Just a question about the advisory period. In terms of college readiness and guidance and students seeing their counselors, is it correct that that is not a consistent opportunity for students with the current schedule as it is? This now gives them a consistent opportunity to be able to work in seeing their counselor, having more social emotional opportunities.
That is a
that-
correct
that's
statement.
right?
There is no consistent advisory
way it is
period.
now.
This is innovative, so it would be
Yes.
new with the new schedule, correct?
Great.
Did you want to hear more about the advisory period, what it would look like, or?
Sure, that would be great, if there was just a little.
Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about the curriculum and professional development?
Yeah, there's actually quite an extensive set of units available to us, and I've been working already in contact with some of our partners at Ruler in terms of building out specific and appropriate grade level work. So think about ninth grade as a transition year. So this would be a time where advisory could formalize the transition process. It could formalize organizational approaches to being more organized, more productive, communication skills. You could think about growth mindset. There's goal setting. There's so many different pieces. But I think that the piece that you're getting to, which is also important, is it would formalize many of the things that our counselors have to do almost ad hoc. So, for example, if the counselors want to run sessions, as it currently states, that we're pulling from classes that exist. We pull from English, we pull from social studies, right? So that's how they're getting access to the students. Now, with this period, we could pull the whole 10th grade during advisory to address maybe in preparation around the career day at BOCES. Or we could pull the whole 11th grade and do a piece on the college essay process. So it affords us an opportunity to formalize what currently exists, but it's very similar to what Dr. Valenti was saying in the current situation with music. Like, the counselors are amazing. They're making it work, but they are definitely stretched in what they are being asked to do in the current system. And so this would allow them in many ways to formalize that. But the other piece, and this alludes to what Rob said, they also could use that time, the office hours, right? This opens another door to schedule time with students so that's not interfering with some of their core curriculum in their classes. So there's sort of two pieces to that.
Is that good? Any other? Yeah.
I just want to thank you for the presentation. I'm excited about that there are so many different opportunities because of the advisory period. I know you mentioned one program specifically, Bill. It was the College Kickstart. Would you be able to elaborate more on that specifically?
Kickstart.
Is it Kickstart or
Yeah, College Kickstart.
Kickoff
So,
or Kickstart.
one of the things that we just brought to the school, and we'll be rolling it out with our juniors this spring, is College Kickstart. I had referenced this before, but there are only two other public schools in the area that access this platform, and that's Bronxville and Greenwich, right? The rest are all independent schools. This is an incredible platform that draws on data both locally from our own school, goes back over 5 years looking at Naviance data, admission rates, and it also draws nationally. And what we could do, for example, through the advisories, we could pull the whole 11th grade, introduce them to the platform, give them access to the platform. What it does is it looks at their personal data, and then it looks at schools that they're interested in, and they build, let's say, their list of 8 to 12 schools that they want to apply to. It actually gives them a grade on that list based on the number of reaches they have, the number of safeties that they have. And then it can modify the list specifically to majors that they are looking at within schools. Are they looking for merit, non-merit? Should they apply EA2? I mean, it is such an incredible tool and sophisticated tool, and our juniors this year will have access to it. They'll have all summer to work with it. They'll come back in the fall. They'll have such a richer sense of their own aspirations, as well as a better sense of what's achievable, what's not, where are my reaches. And it also depersonalizes those conversations. So we could bring that out in this schedule. It's something that's really exciting in terms of the college piece. And I think, yeah, the space would afford us a more formal space to do that.
Thank you.
Trustee McCluskey, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Does that replace Naviance? No, it's a supplement too. It sounds like a very rich,
Yes.
comprehensive supplement to it.
Right.
Okay. Can I ask my questions? Or are we going?
I have a,
Oh, you said we're going around.
so
Okay, no
I,
problem.
I do have a question in terms of the scheduled, does it allow, or can you maybe elaborate or talk about its flexibility with respect to some of our students with special needs?
So how does the proposed schedule accommodate students with special
Yes.
needs? All right, why don't we start with Chris?
Sure. I think the biggest piece is that opportunity for additional support as needed, right? Because you're going from 8 periods and a lunch to now 8.5 periods with lunch included there. So, you know, we're working on our tier 2 MTSS work. So I think that's the biggest added benefit. Now, you know, the one thing I will say is we've got to work really closely with our special programs, especially with Nora Flynn's group, who do a lot of, you know, career training. They're involved in community organizations, you know, but still have academic needs. So what happens is those are kind of the students that you start with when you build a schedule to craft out what they need, and then you work out from there.
Okay, and I also just have one question, I'm sorry. What do you envision as the professional development surrounding the schedule?
Look,
That's
I think, you know, a lot of the work that's already ongoing is in line with this schedule, right? We're already talking about creating dynamic learning environments. So again, as I said earlier, if we were going to say we want 49 minutes of lecture, it would be useless to go to a longer model. But that's not what we're looking for. You know, we want to have conversations about really chunking lessons, you know, having a piece of introduction, a little bit of direct instruction, and then you get into some of the application, discussion, conversation, lab work, analytical writing, whatever it may be. But I think right now, a lot of our classes get cut short in the middle of that application piece. So this should allow for the application to really fully develop and then allow teachers to also have a closure, which wraps up that lesson and sets a frame for the next one.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you, Christine. So I just have a couple of quick questions, but before I get to that, I want to thank you all for the hard work and dedication and for this very thoughtful and detailed presentation for the board and for the community this evening. I think one thing to just highlight in my comment is you all individually went through how this is additive and complementary to what the students are currently getting. And I think from the administration's perspective, the board's perspective, as well as the staff, we are here to continue to evolve and modernize for the benefits of our students. And that's creating individualized pathways for each one of our students. So the sample schedules here, I think, were very helpful, at least for myself and probably for a lot of folks in the community. So again, thank you all for the work on this. And I know, Chris, at one of our meetings a couple weeks ago, you had an entire committee where you included students and staff. So again, I think to what Christine had opened with, this has been a very thoughtful and deliberate process. Question that I have, and I'm going to work a little bit backwards. In terms of extra help, I see in the schedule that's in the morning. There is no PM extra help. Could the office hours that you spoke about, Rob, and the scheduling component, that could be used for extra help in those office hours? If a student, you know, you had kind of said, first period you move it around because some students are late. We spoke a little bit about that. Office hours could accommodate for that if they don't get there in the morning for extra help. Is that correct?
The answer is yes.
The answer is absolutely
Okay.
yes. That's exactly what the office hours
Perfect.
model is. Not only, and we think it'll be more beneficial because it's going to be individualized. As for now, you go to extra help after school, you could be in a group of 6 to 8. But if you schedule individual time during office hours, you know, you're going to be able to get individualized feedback on an essay, work shoulder to shoulder with the math teacher. And not only will students be able to schedule teachers, but teachers can schedule struggling students.
Fantastic. And I think one of the interesting things is last year when we started this exploration in terms of looking at, and Bill, you mentioned them, a lot of the surrounding districts and also some of the private schools. You know, what you hit on, which is very important, is we've taken the best of these schedules and put them together in one place, again, to add to that experience. Going to the busing, Dr. Valenti, quick question, because I want to make sure I have the timing correct. If you're a parent that has a student at Ann Hutch, Greenvale, and Waverly, it looks like there's only 5 minutes in between if the child is not taking the bus and they're being picked up. Is there an accommodation that would be made for those students, those parents in that regard? Because school ends at 3:05 and 3
To
o'clock.
Waverly,
Yeah, so if you have a student at Waverly and Greenvale, for the folks here in the audience,
Yes.
we know what traffic in town is
Yeah.
like now. 5 minutes is not enough.
yeah, let me answer your question, and then I want to
Perfect.
elaborate on another question you had. The short answer is yes, there are two accommodations that I'm looking at with transportation. One is that Waverly would hold the youngsters, designated youngsters, in a special place, supervised until parents had an opportunity to come and pick them up. Once we identified who those students were, that's an easy type of thing to do that. The second is, I know that there is religious education certain days a week. I've done this in other districts where we've accommodated that by busing students directly to the particular school, if that helps ameliorate the problem. So we do have some flexibility within the 19 buses that we have.
Great.
On the contractual question, we are allowed contractually to go up to a maximum of 250 minutes instructionally per day. Because the way our contract is written, it does address an 8-period day, and it does allow up to 50 minutes, right? So I think when you look at the amount of minutes, currently we are using a 9-period model with 40 minutes, 360 generally. But we do have flexibility in this new schedule to assign some additional instructional minutes. 5 periods times 40 is your 200, right? But if you multiply 5 times 50, which is the maximum contractually, you're now at 250 minutes. So within the range of 200 and 250, there is movement that allows for the flexibility of this schedule. So they are taking advantage of that, and I think in the long run, through the benefit of the contract, which everybody agrees is what it is, students can benefit from that.
Thank you. And again, thank you everybody for your work on this.
Chris?
Is there another question?
Yeah, we're going around the table.
Serially?
Yes.
Thank you so much for that very thoughtful and very thorough presentation, and thank you for all your work on this. I know you've been working very hard on this since the fall. There was a lot of misinformation out there, so I just want to point out and clarify a few things. So first of all, this is not a block schedule. This is a rotating 7, what do you call it?
Well, go ahead.
We could use a little bit of education-ese quick. A rotating drop 4 schedule.
Rotating drop 4 schedule. Okay, because a block schedule would be more like 80 minutes, where we're going from 40 to 49, correct?
Correct, and a true block model has classes meet every other day, as where here you're only dropping 1 out of the 5 days.
Got it. Okay. And I know there's a lot of concern about lunch, so I just wanted to point out that a lot of feedback that we have gotten from parents and students is that kids were not even getting a lunch because they did not have time in their schedule. So they were skipping lunch in order to take electives. So this new schedule will ensure that every student gets a lunch, correct?
Correct, yeah. I mean, that's certainly something I think all of the educators in the room would say is important.
Yeah.
You know, we don't really subscribe to that idea of filling up the schedule to the extent that there is no lunch. But in this option, because it's a period 5 embedded, you cannot opt out of lunch.
Right, which I think is really important. And also, as what you were saying, I know a lot of kids are skipping their lunch to see their guidance counselor, especially junior and senior year, talking about college and career, and there's no time. So this would be built-in advisory period, built-in time with the guidance counselor, which I think is really important to point out. I know a lot of students were very worried about the 7:30 start time, so just to point out, that is not mandatory, that is optional. And as you mentioned, the bus kids are there anyway, doing nothing at 7:30, so at least they'll have the opportunity to go for extra help. And I know a lot of kids are missing class time, so this would enable, no kid is gonna be pulled out of English class, say, to like go meet with their guidance counselor anymore, because they'll have the advisory period.
You know, I don't want to go that far because there's always things that arise in a
Right.
building of 1,200 people, you know, things come up. But again, to Bill's point, this is carved out time where kids are going to get the type of programming that we all agree around the table here and certainly in our offices that students need.
Okay. And just one question that I have. I know that this isn't just in theory. You guys have actual real-life experience using schedules like this. So Bill, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Scarsdale or Bronxville or Rye, what you've seen, the benefits of this schedule based on what, as opposed to like the traditional 9-period schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can speak from the teacher perspective as well as the administrator, but particularly the teacher. And this is something that has not been brought up, but I know is true for students. They actually have less homework. Okay, and there's two pieces to this. One, for whatever reason inherently, and I always found this, because you have the drop, teachers don't double up the days of the drops. In fact, teachers find the drops just as refreshing as the students find the drops. And often it breathes humanity into the schedule in ways that when you meet with the grind of the same class every day at the same time, you lose that. The other thing it affords you is actually, it gives you extra help before like a test, for example, if it's after the drop. So that's something, and so I think what students find is actually there's more space in their day. There's something nice knowing, oh, I don't have this class on Thursdays, right? And if you have a game on Wednesdays, that gives you a little extra time, right? If you need to take care of something for Friday. And teachers find it the same, right? There's going to be light days and there's a little heavier days. And it's those light days that allow you to catch up on your grading, help you to maybe do some lesson planning, connect with colleagues, meet with students, and then you move forward. So I think the drop especially is such a breath of fresh air within a schedule for both the staff as well as the students. And I think in terms of the workload, it spreads it out more evenly versus creating these sort of like peaks and valleys that sometimes exist in the current form.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
So hold on, Bill. You're mine today. No, I wanted to just piggyback on what Chrissy was talking about. I'm curious as to change is difficult. Adapting to change takes time. Can you share what, in your experience, what has been some of the challenges, what students could experience, both students and teachers? What are some of, like, a day in the life when this gets rolled out? Anything you can kind of provide insight on?
Sure. I actually think the format of this is less of a transition than, for example, if you went to a true block schedule. I can remember going to a true block schedule, Bronxville, they were 80 minutes, and I attempted to just basically take my lesson plans, combine them, and then teach an 80-minute block instead of 240, and I was just exhausted. And what I think teachers will find, and will support them in this process, is again, that rush, that sort of panic or that anxiety to get things moving that sometimes exists within such a confined period that currently we have. There's more space. Things can sort of evolve. Conversations have space to develop. You can explore. The inquiry process has a more richness. There's opportunities for students to present. You're not racing through presentations when a group goes up because you're worried about the last group being cut off and pushed to the next day. But as said, like the transition piece, honestly, the students transition so fast. I mean, probably by like the third week of September, they'll forget whatever was. You know, I really do believe that. The longer process is, you know, the educators. But I do think just in terms of conversations, I think all of us are human beings here. We recognize there are unknowns that we don't even know, for example, that are unique to Eastchester. And I think there is an understanding that when we face those, we'll make adjustments. And we'll work through this collectively and together. And ideally, we'll be in a better place at the end. And we recognize there's always going to be obstacles. But it's our fear that we can't let confine us from really achieving something that's greater than we currently have in the moment. So I think that's important to keep in perspective as we go through this. And we all collectively go through this transition.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, then I want to make another comment.
The one piece I would, you know, think that we should really be cognizant of and will support students in is, you know, this is going to require a little bit more time management on their part, right? It's not coming home every day doing homework for the class you know you have the next day. So if you have a block where, you know, you're dropping a day, you may not have to do that homework that night, but you've got to kind of take the holistic picture to see, well, what am I going to have to do tomorrow night? Should I really do it now? So I think time management is one area where we'll certainly work to support students. Again, we can do that through advisory. We can do that through a number of other offerings that we have.
Oh, that's helpful. I had.
Yeah, I just want to comment, combine yours and Christie's question. This new schedule keeps everything that is wonderful from the old schedule
Right.
and really embellishes
Enhances it.
improves it, and adds to it. So really, it's, you know, current schedule plus one, or 2.0, if you will. We're going from 1.0 to 2.0. And on the notion of students being befuddled, many, many years ago when I was a department chair, the administration decided to go to a mod schedule. A mod is 15 minutes. So you could have one mod, you could have two, half an hour, 45 minutes, getting the picture, an hour, you can go for as much as an hour and a half. The first day of the introduction of the modular schedule, faculty was running after student asking, where should I be? What room do I go to now? The kids adjust fantastically fast, and we adults ultimately caught up with them. So I'm not worried about the students adjusting. I think Chris's point is a good one. You know, they're going to have to learn how to live life as well as their athletics and their academics, et cetera, and they'll adjust very quickly. We have no difficulty knowing that adolescents are capable of doing that. Yeah.
That's good. That's comforting to hear. I wanted to just clarify 2 points. One, around BOCES. I know we're moving to having the students conduct their traditional classwork in the AM, and BOCES will be offered as a PM program. I'm hopeful that the answer is that we're not we will not be reducing the number of potential applicants that can apply to go to BOCES.
We are not reducing, no, there is, because we're dealing with tradition in Eastchester, and I'm all for tradition in certain areas. Traditionally, Eastchester has had a 9-period schedule. Traditionally, half the students went to BOCES in the morning and half went in the afternoon. That's tradition, okay? We are saying with an innovative new schedule, if BOCES is offering the identical programs in the afternoon, and of 55 students, 54 can go in the afternoon, and that is a better arrangement, why not have them do that? There is nothing sacred about having half go in the morning and half in the afternoon. Now, the one program that Chris alluded to is the nursing program, which is offered in the morning, and if there is a student interested, we'll make the accommodations. So we can work it out on an individual basis. But 95 to 99% of BOCES programs are both AM and PM.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
comforting. And just, I'm sorry, one other clarifying point. you opened up your presentation. It was intriguing to me when you mentioned about if we did nothing with the schedule related to capacity with our students who want to take music, orchestra, what have we. We have a capacity issue today, right? So if we did nothing, how are we planning for that going forward? I mean, how are we, it was just,
To it.
yeah.
Two ways. Number one, the board has been considering over a period of time a second bond referendum. And if indeed that's the direction you're going in for the future, you may want to consider expanding the footprint of the building. At that point, I'm not just talking music, there may be other programs that are worthy of looking at in terms of expansion. In the short term, which is what we're talking about, and I define short term as 3 to 5 years, because even if you did decide to go with another bond, it would take you minimally 3 to 5 years to get it passed, approved by Albany, get construction going, and seeing the results. So we have to think seriously short term. And the options we saw today, without getting overly specific and having people say, oh, that's the room they're going to take, the options we saw today allowed us to see within the current footprint of this building, we are able to accommodate an additional band orchestra room. The music department, represented by Mark Dodge, seemed to move in the direction of saying, look, if you could do anything for us, get us another band orchestra room. Right? Would you agree with that, Chrissy? That was the one ask. And right now, these folks are living with teaching on a stage on days when they're allowed to be on the stage. We just went through a major play, Guys and Dolls. They lost classes due to that. So these folks are moving all over the building, moving their classes, sometimes in a mezzanine section, sometimes on an auditorium stage, other times, in a part of the building they could find. That is what I meant by inadequate.
Right.
And currently, finding that additional space is going to reduce some of the pressure. The other issue is a good one that we're creating intentionally. We're encouraging more youngsters in elementary schools to participate in the arts. That's why we're talking about shares in the budget. Now, if there are more students coming up out of 5th grade, and Mark Dodge alluded to this, I'm going to have larger sections in 6th grade. Now, we think larger sections are good. We think more sections should occur. But guess what? We need room for it.
Right.
So that's where the rub, Shakespeare said, therein lies the rub.
Yeah, well, that's helpful. Thank you for clarifying. That's all.
Great, thanks. I guess the benefits of going last, a lot of my questions were asked. But you guys did a great job presenting. I think you really did a great job in explaining the why behind it. So I have two small questions. You touched on it a little bit, but would like to get a little more specific. By going from 40 to 49 minutes, and you touched on professional development as already exists now, but what specifically will you be directing the teachers to do with that with more time going into September? Or is it more, it's up to them based on the professional development? I'm assuming it's not just lecture more. So, is there more of, maybe you haven't developed it yet, but is there more of a directive around what to do with that extra time?
If I could give just a teeny-weeny bit of history, for the 3 years I've been here, I have seen major shifts in methodological changes on the parts of all K-12 teachers. Our teachers are moving more toward small group learning, independent learning, lecturing limited. So I think it will be the rare classroom that anyone would walk into and sit for 40 minutes totally for a lecture, or save us all 49 or 50 minutes for a lecture. So there has been shifts in methodological style. Now, on top of that, can we do more? Can we offer more? Well, I'll let Chris and Bill. And Madeline, let's not forget Madeline is here. I've seen some fantastic stuff. You want to say a word about the methodology at your middle school, and then we'll let Chris?
Certainly, Dr. Valenti, and thank you for bringing that out. There is absolutely wonderful instruction going on at the middle school with differentiation at all levels of instruction, with infused classrooms with technology, not just to replace a text or to replace instruction, but to make it purposeful and make it to be meaningful to the instruction, to reinforce learning. We've had opportunities, including today, to provide through the special education department, professional development for our co-teaching teams. We continue to strengthen instruction in those settings and provide teachers with opportunity to, through BOCES, through local other areas that we can provide professional development, have always been provided. I can say there's been certainly an appetite for that and a motivation from the teachers and a support from the district to provide that. So we're always open to learn as educators, and we appreciate the opportunities, and it's certainly seen in our classrooms at the middle school.
You know, I look forward, first of all, to partnering with Bill on, you know, a comprehensive professional development initiative. But just to give you a sense of a couple of things that are ongoing at the high school, and this is the sort of thing that, you know, I envision continuing. So at our most recent superintendent's conference day, the high school had, you know, building-based time in the afternoon. We organized a number of different options for teachers to participate in. I personally ran one on problem-based learning, which is the exact mindset that we want teachers to take, you know, to utilize that extra time in the classroom. You know, something we've done at our faculty meetings, we've instituted at the beginning, you know, through a coalition of the willing, a teacher feature where a faculty member gets up in front, shares an innovative practice. We break up into interdisciplinary groups, talk about how that practice can be implemented in the respective departments. So, you know, I certainly view myself as an instructional leader, and, you know, look very much at being a principal as a coach. You know, part of that is my coaching background, and it's just natural in that way. But, you know, that's work that I'm very comfortable in leading and facilitating. And as I said, I think, you know, Bill and I will work very well together in that regard.
Great, thank you.
Did you want to add anything, Bill?
Sure, I will keep it short, but I would be hesitant to use the word directive in any regard in this matter. I think it's really a framing. And if we can place, you know, students at the center of our classrooms, if we can place inquiry, critical thinking, really a deeper sense of learning, and support teachers in those spaces and creating those spaces, not filling them, I think we're doing our work and we're doing it well. And this gives us the framework. I mean, nothing is more important than really space and time. And this defines both in a way that I think is exciting and innovative and moves beyond the linear notions that we currently have lived in. And honestly, those linear notions lead to linear patterns of thinking. And now if we can get some flexibility, some fluidity, some non-linear patterns, we can be more nuanced, more thoughtful, we can have deeper conversations, deeper discussions. And going forward, I mean, you got year-long electives, you can begin to offer seminars, senior seminars, freshman seminars, writing seminars. So there's a whole host of land out there that's yet to be sort of harvested and seeded. But I think it's very exciting, and I agree with both Chris and Madeline, just to be able to partner with them, and Rob as well, in terms of this work is you know, the best part of it.
Thank you. Any other questions, or we're all good?
We did good? Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I want to thank Robert, Chris, Bill, and Madeline. Let's give them another round of applause. And for all of you folks who sat out there patiently listening, there will be a community forum at which we'll have a similar presentation that will allow for questions from the community. And we'd like to try and schedule that in the very near future. Okay? So on that note, the superintendent's report is concluded.
Thank you very much, Dr. Valenti. So our future meeting dates will be April 22nd, which will be a regular Board of Education meeting. That's where we'll have our budget adoption. And then May 6th will be a regular meeting. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Sean, second. Jackie, all in favor? Okay. Motion passes. Have a good night, everyone.